The first thing I saw was a rifle barrel coming through my kitchen doorway, black steady way too close, and then a voice that didn't sound human anymore, just procedure. Hands where I can see them. Before I could even process what planet I was on, my cheek hit the wooden floor of my family's cabin. My wrists got cinched behind my back, and my 15-year-old son Noah was frozen under the table like a hunted animal. Outside across Silverwood Lake, a woman in a pristine white cardigan held up her phone and filmed it like she'd paid for front-row seats. Denise Whitman, president of the HOA, smiling the way people smile when they think they've finally won. This cabin wasn't some weekend toy I bought on a whim. It was old timber and stubborn history built in 1924 by my great-grandfather, back when this place was just pines, water, and grit. After my divorce, it became the one spot on earth where Noah and I could breathe without feeling like the world was grading us. I'm Ethan Carter, and I work for Northbridge Construction Group. The kind of job where you learn fast that emotions don't solve problems, documentation does. I thought coming to the lake would be simple. Fish fix a few boards, teach my kid how to skip stones again. Then the neighborhood welcoming committee arrived. Denise showed up on a Tuesday morning with a clipboard and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. She stood on my porch like she owned it, taking in the old cedar siding like it offended her personally. "Hi, I'm Denise, president of the Homeowners Association," she said, crisp as a commercial. "We're so thrilled you're using the property." I told her politely that my family had been here longer than her precious association. She blinked once like a computer buffering, then clicked right back into that same smile. "Well," she said, "now you're part of a community, and communities have standards." 2 days later, I found a notice of violation taped to my door like I was some delinquent teenager. It cited unauthorized exterior materials, non-compliant dock hardware, and my personal favorite, unapproved fire pit aesthetics. There was even a deadline and a fee. I laughed out loud when I read it. A short, sharp laugh that turned into a sigh. Because it wasn't funny, not really. It was somebody testing how hard they could push before you pushed back. I emailed the HOA office, attached a scan of our deed, and asked where exactly they got the idea they could regulate a cabin that existed before their rules did. Denise replied within 10 minutes. "Mr. Carter, your attitude is concerning. Continued non-compliance may result in escalating enforcement." Escalating enforcement, like we were at war. The next week, Denise came again, this time with 2 neighbors behind her like backup dancers. One guy wore a golf visor, the other held a binder like he'd been waiting his whole life for this moment. Denise pointed at my dock. "That railing," she said, "is not uniform with our lakefront aesthetic." "It's a railing," I said. "It stops people from falling in." She tilted her head. "Safety is important," she agreed, "but so is property value." Noah was inside, pretending not to listen, but I could see his shoulders tighten every time her voice rose. That's what Denise didn't get or didn't care about. This wasn't an argument about paint and railings. This was a kid trying to feel safe. Then came the first police visit. I was frying eggs when a squad car rolled up, lights off, but presence loud. The officer looked uncomfortable before he even spoke. "We got a call," he said, "about suspicious chemical odors and possible drug activity." I stared at him so long I could feel my own heartbeat in my ears. "Sir," I said, "the only thing cooking in here is breakfast." He stepped inside, took a slow look around, saw Noah at the table with cereal, saw the old framed photo of my great-grandparents on the wall. His shoulders dropped a fraction. "Know what this is." "We'll clear it," he muttered, and left. Denise didn't stop. It was noise complaints when I wasn't making noise. It was unregistered guests when Noah's best friend came by for an hour. It was a call about a minor drinking alcohol because she saw Noah holding a root beer bottle on the dock. Every time a car pulled up, Noah flinched. Every time the phone buzzed, I felt my stomach tighten like a fist. I tried to keep my tone light for my kid. "It's just paperwork, buddy." But at night when the lake went dark and the cabin creaked the way old wood does, I could feel the pressure building in my chest. And then the SWAT raid. I wish I could tell you I handled it like a tough guy. I didn't. I came out of a dead sleep to shouting boots, glass cracking, and that sickening moment where you realize you are not in control of your own home. Noah screamed my name once, and it sounded like a part of him ripped. I remember trying to stand, trying to say, "Wait," and then the floor was there. and my wrists were pinned, and my cheek was pressed into my great-grandfather's plank boards like the cabin was holding me down. After they found nothing but canned beans, fishing gear, and a terrified kid, they uncuffed me with the kind of apology you give when you can't take back what you just did. "We got a report," the sergeant said, avoiding my eyes. "We had to respond." When they left, Noah didn't speak for a long time. He just sat on the couch, staring at the busted door frame, breathing shallow like he forgot how to do it normally. That night, after he fell asleep in his hoodie because he didn't want to change clothes, I sat on the porch with the lake in front of me and the quiet screaming in my ears. I looked at the water and thought something I'm not proud of. Maybe I should sell. Maybe I should let her win. Maybe I'm the one dragging my kid through this. Because I'm stubborn. Because I'm sentimental. Because I want to prove a point. For a few minutes I actually believed it. Then I heard Noah shift inside a small sound like he'd been trying not to cry. And something in me went hard. Not angry hard. Clear hard. Denise didn't just want a prettier shoreline. She wanted control. She wanted to scare us into giving up. And I wasn't going to teach my son that bullies get rewarded. The next morning I treated it like a job site incident. I started documenting everything. Dates, times, officer names, case numbers. I installed cameras not just on the porch, but hidden in the trees where the driveway curves. I saved every HOA email, every notice, every threat of liens. I also walked into the county records office and pulled copies of old property maps. The original deed, the proof that the cabin existed decades before any HOA boundary line was drawn. Paper doesn't get intimidated. Paper just sits there and tells the truth. Denise escalated anyway. One afternoon I found the chain on my dock latch cut clean through. Another day, my outdoor camera lens was smeared with black paint. Someone tried to drag my great-grandfather's old wooden rowboat away from the shore and let it drift like trash. That was the moment I stopped feeling like a guy dealing with a nuisance and started feeling like a man being hunted. A week later, my hidden camera caught 3 men in reflective vests and baseball caps walking down my path with bolt cutters. Not maintenance, not neighbors. They moved with purpose. I stepped out and said loud enough for the camera to capture it. "Who the hell are you?" They froze. One of them did the guilty thing, eyes darting, breathing faster. I held my phone up, recording, and said, "Say it again. Tell me who hired you." And that's when one of them, trying to save himself, blurted, "We don't know, man. We got paid cash. Mark Whitman. That's the name on the number." Mark Whitman. I didn't recognize it at first. My brain was still stuck on the fact that Denise had apparently hired people to vandalize my property. But later that night, when I was sitting at the little dining table with my laptop open and my hands still shaking, I typed the name into our internal directory at Northbridge. And there it was. Mark Whitman, Project Coordinator, reporting chain. Mark Whitman, Senior Manager, Ethan Carter. Me. I stared at the screen until the letters went blurry. Then I laughed, not because it was funny, but because the universe sometimes hands you a twist so perfect it feels scripted. Denise didn't just have a husband. She had a husband who worked under me. A husband who could have heard any casual detail I said at the office. "Yeah, I'm heading to the lake this weekend. Noah's got a friend coming over. I might be offline Saturday." And suddenly all those perfectly timed complaints made sense. I didn't storm into work screaming. I didn't call Denise and threaten her. I did what I do when something turns serious. I built a file. I contacted our legal team about conflict of interest, harassment, misuse of private information. I forwarded the footage, the statements, the case numbers. I also emailed the local precinct with a calm message: "I believe someone is abusing emergency services to intimidate my family. Here is my documentation." Then I set the last piece of the trap. And I hate that I had to call it that, but that's what it was. There was an HOA compliance meeting scheduled at the community lodge, the kind with folding chairs and fake smiles. Denise loved those. She loved having a microphone. So I showed up with a folder, my attorney on speakerphone, and a quiet kind of patience that makes controlling people nervous. Denise started in the second she saw me. "Mr. Carter," she announced to the room, "you've been a problem since day one. You refuse to comply, you bring unwanted attention, and frankly—" "Denise," I said, keeping my voice level before you continue, "I'd like to introduce something." I placed my phone on the table and hit play. The room filled with audio. The sound of those men in the woods, the bolt cutters, my voice asking who hired them, and that guy saying the name, Mark Whitman, clear as day. Denise's face changed in real time the way a mask slips when the straps snap. Her mouth opened, then closed, her eyes flicked to the back of the room. And there was Mark standing half behind a pillar like he wished he could dissolve into drywall. I watched him look at her. I watched her look at him. And then I watched him realize he'd just been dragged into the light with no way out. Someone in the room whispered, "Isn't Mark? Isn't he the guy from Northbridge?" Another neighbor turned, eyebrows raised. "Wait," he said. "You work for Ethan Carter." Mark's throat bobbed. Denise tried to speak, tried to grab the microphone, but the room was already turning on her the way people do when they finally see the strings. The officer Denise had invited to the meeting, yes, she actually did that, stepped forward with a look that wasn't amused anymore. "Ma'am," he said, "we need to talk about false reports and potential harassment." Denise's voice finally came out thin and sharp. "This is a misunderstanding. It's a pattern the officer cut in, and for the first time Denise didn't have a comeback ready." Mark took a step back like he might run. Denise reached for his arm, then stopped like touching him would make it worse. The room was dead quiet and I could hear the heater clicking in the corner. I leaned forward just slightly and said soft enough that only she would really feel it, "You wanted me gone so badly, you forgot to check who you were messing with." Denise stared at me, eyes glassy with the kind of panic that comes when your power evaporates in front of witnesses. Then the officer asked her to come outside, and she didn't argue anymore because bullies don't know what to do when the rules stop protecting them. Noah was waiting in the car when I walked out, and I didn't tell him it was over. I didn't promise anything. I just looked at him and said, "You did nothing wrong." He nodded once like he needed to hear that more than anything. And here's the lesson I learned the hard way: a bully with a title is still just a bully, until you shine a light and make them answer for it.